For all intents and purposes, please consider this as a direct follow-up to my apology video I've made recently. After uploading the apology video, my comment section was immediately flooded with viewers whom had believed I was bullied into walking back my statements by Saintontas, despite Saint's involvement only being relegated to 2 of the 7 videos I was addressing, and even then, only one of the 2 did he call me out on mistakes I made that I would take accountability for. While I said in that video that I made the decision of my own volition and I have no intention to take back any of the mistakes I took accountability for, I must be honest to my viewers and say that to an extent, yes, I was backed into a corner by the content creator with over 35 times the subscriber count than me that garners an extremist community and was therefore pressured into making amends. So before I can finally turn over a new leaf, I need to talk about the time I spent as a member of the Saintontas community and my interactions with the man himself. So then, let me tell you what the last month was like for me. In my unscripted ramblings about Tectone way back when, I briefly mentioned that I got into content creation because I wanted to become a part of the conversation of gacha games alongside all the other names in the space. The specific inciting incident I have not mentioned, however, that sparked all of this was Tabaru's video covering the most recent Arknight's Enfield beta test. In the video, Tabaru was voicing his concerns of how modern gacha gaming audiences dominated by a post-Hoyoverse crowd would put creativity and unique genres and ideas for new games at risk, as an incredibly massive crowd of newcomers to the space effectively had full control over steering the conversation of where a game's direction could go. Every game that wasn't an open-world Genshin clone would be ripped out of its niche genre appeal and forced into becoming one with no regard for if the developers could pull it off, the Hoyo audience not just throwing it away for being a cheap knockoff, and leaving the original audience who were looking forward to an experience that caters to them with nothing to play anymore, perpetually starved by anything that isn't open-world slop. Saintontas' reaction video, for all intents and purposes, was the personification of that very conversation-steering group, as his opinions of the situation effectively boiled down to follow the money and to label Tabaru as a doom poster for his hyperbolic portrayal of beta testers who wanted a more action-focused experience. Because in the world of Saintontas, only he is allowed to make fun of commenters. This became the biggest reason for me to want to jump into the world of content creation. So after 2 videos that didn't gain any traction, 3 months to improve my recording and audio setup, I had begun work on my critique of Saintontas. In that time, however, I had begun to soften up my stance on Saint. While I disagreed with some of his opinions and his approach to responding to others, I actually found a lot more that I ended up agreeing with him on, even more than other creators he shared the space with and would butt heads with. I had also come to the realization that I could get a head start in my account's analytics if I adjusted the critique video to be more neutral and level-headed. And so I did just that, and was left with a video that carried a rather balanced take on the #1 Kurobot himself and would perform incredibly well for my first foray into YouTube and the gacha space. This would also be the point in time where EO would start drawing attention to himself again following the conversation of HP inflation in Zenless Zone Zero. Again, setting aside Saint's aggressive approach to discussing the matter, I found more in common with Saint's take than I did with the ZZZ elitists and EO. So after putting together my second video, I thought it was finally time to make my presence known. The rest from then on is history.
Hey, Arikado Zodan, appreciate the 5 gifties, buddy boy. Wait, I feel like Wait a second. I recognized your fucking name, bro. I recognize this guy's fucking name. Looks like he's making a bit of a marketing expense here.
At first, I was greatly enjoying my time in his community. Finally having the courage to truly join the conversation in gacha content creation, I would continue to focus on making videos while finding the time to catch Saint live and see his reactions. All in all, there wasn't really much to say. I was taking in the experience for some time. However, I was not prepared for just how far Saint as an individual would go with his behavior. As the situation with Zenless Zone Zero's power creep discussion was continuing to ramp up, I was beginning to get concerned with just how much heat, particularly from the Wuthering Waves community, that Zenless Zone Zero and its community were getting, as they were just simply looking forward to their upcoming version 2.0 release. At the time, I thought the comparisons between Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero were not fair to ZZZ. The game had unfavorable coverage already from the very start due to releasing a month after Wuthering Waves, and being the most vulnerable to the ex-Genshin Impact community looking to punch down at an easier target. I attempted to do my part and release a video with the hope that larger content creators could pick it up, see my point of view, and possibly even agree with some of it in an attempt to calm down both sides. What I wasn't expecting was the comparisons to be taken to the next level following the livestream reveal of Wuthering Waves version 2.4. ZZZ's 2.0 livestream by comparison paled to what Wuwa was offering, and this provided the extremist Wuwa crowd the perfect opportunity to show no mercy against anyone who dared to like ZZZ. Zenless Zone Zero was very clearly struggling to offer anything substantial for version 2.0, as they were still feeling the aftershock of the removal of TV mode as far back as version 1.4 and debatably even further than that, and was stuck playing catch-up to the point that they even needed a version 1.7 despite Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail obviously not needing to do the same. Having watched Saint's dogpiling of ZZZ for some time and escalating to kicking the game while it was down following Wuwa's 2.4 announcement, I felt it was only right for me to put together a video calling out the extremist Wuthering Waves crowd for their behavior, seeing as how everyone was okay to do the same for Zenless Zone Zero. While the video itself was easily my best performing video analytically, it easily did the most damage to my reputation outside of the ZZZ space, especially in Saintontas' community and himself. I took full accountability for the fact that I could have provided more images for my argument and worded some things differently, and for the most part walked away from it with relatively a light scathing when compared to how Saint usually handles his adversaries. However, it was as I was working shifts at my job the next couple days that I had come to a harsh, depressing realization. Something that would shatter my perspective of Saintontas and cause me to never look at him the same way again.
Yet all it took was the Wuthering Waves 2.0 livestream reveal for any progress I could have made to be completely drowned out by the obnoxious, loud, extremist Wuwa crowd.
And here, we're really placing quite a bit of blame. We're placing quite a significant amount of blame on the Wuthering Waves community. Let me show you all something really fast. Just came here to dislike this Kurobot video. This was the day right before the 2.0 live stream. It's time you get humbled, you gotcha Bobby Lee. Cope harder. And this video aged like milk after the live stream. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say we need to be going ahead and labeling only the Wuthering Waves community as elitists. We kind of are putting the blinders on over here. We kind of are putting the blinders on over here a little bit. Maybe unintentionally, but to only put Wuthering Waves on here when it's extremely abundantly clear that ZZZ has, if we're going to entirely honest, one of the worst communities I've ever seen. I think we got to play both sides a little bit more.
To resume,
I never downplayed it. It was in the disclaimer. Yeah, I do agree it was in the disclaimer. It's just not mentioned here. I think it needed to be more of a balanced overview of the situation.
Saintontas and his community expects me to take my video meant to call out the extremist Wuthering Waves crowd, specifically say my disclaimer at the start is not good enough, and to turn it into another video for them to use as ammunition mission to attack the entire Zenless Zone community and player base. Meanwhile, Saintontas will never attempt to separate the opinions and actions of extremist Zenless Zone Zero players, some of whom he intentionally provokes with his content and pins it on every ZZZ player. Shit, they'll pin anything on us, because I guess now I'm responsible for that one freak who killed cats in China.
This community will open their eyes to the fucking disaster that is unfolding in front of their faces. This community is so cooked. It's so gross. It's so unbelievable that you're going so far as to use $2,000 teams that the average player is not going to be close to having. And of course, with the community rallying around attacking every single creator that happens to critique their game, well, soon the critiques will stop as well, and then the game's going down the fucking gutter. And instead of supporting a CC calling out terrible business practices and developments, you proceed to brigade and attack them instead. You really are the new premier Hoyo Shill community, ZZZ players. That's what we're dealing with over here in the ZZZ community. And I gotta say, it's one of the worst things I've ever seen from a gacha community before. This might be worse than Genshin. This might be worse than HSR. You're reaching lows in this community that I didn't even think were possible to meet.
Ever since I've been given such a cruel awakening, I haven't been able to put up with his behavior ever since. Every possible criticism of him, his content, or the game he stands behind, there always seems to be some excuse or justification he, and by extension, the extremist Wuba community, uses to absolve themselves of their hand in perpetuating the bad blood, with no regard for anyone caught in the crossfire. You're a concerned Wuthering Waves player that took issue with 2.3 or the anniversary? You're either a brigader or too stupid to understand why the anniversary wasn't bad. You didn't like the 2.3 Cube event content? I guess you just don't like the whole game. You think Saint is doom posting? He was just being hyperbolic, so you're an idiot for thinking otherwise, despite the fact that hyperbole only works if you don't use it all the time. You think Saint needs to lighten up his tone? You're just a pussy who needs to take insults and bullying like a man would. You didn't stop playing ZZZ over the TV mode and thought it was fine? Clearly, you're the problem and your opinion is invalid. Fuck you, your dedication to a game everyone else abandoned means jack shit!
Who do you think is going to be left? To me, this is just the ZZZ TV situation, where you had an absolutely cancerous mechanic like TVs in the game for about 3 months. Everybody quit the game because the TVs were so bad, and the only people left are fucking idiots.
Over and over and over again, Saint will find a reason or excuse to put others down whom he disagrees with, regardless of intent or integrity of the person he is targeting. The degree to which he tries so hard to displace accountability is to the point of parody. And the sad fact of the matter is that Saint is able to get away with this as he is one of the largest voices in the gacha space outside of the Genshin Impact content creation space. He can throw his weight around however he pleases while simply drowning out anyone who dares to oppose him. This is exactly what I was referring to in my original critique of Saintontas. Despite all the good Saint does as a creator, it's drowned out by his inability to use a scalpel in place of a sledgehammer, turning everything up to 11 while claiming to be the one who's trying to save the very games he is actively making worse by creating inhospitable spaces to discuss and share other gacha games in. It is at this point that I am convinced the only reason Saintontas continues to cover Hoyoverse games is because Saint cannot financially sustain himself on Wuthering Waves content alone. Unlike Tectone and Gacha Smack, whom have succeeded in branching their content out, free from the shackles of covering games they've long since made their peace with, Saint cannot. Either because he lacks the same financial freedom to do so, or he takes some sadistic pleasure from monetizing his own mental health, all the while pissing on everyone else's head and calling it rain. Aside from the initial exposure provided by his coverage of my earlier videos, I have no reason to believe my affiliation with Saintontas has done good for my channel's growth, and debatably has done more to stunt it. Every time Saint makes an ass out of himself, I've had to awkwardly dance around his behavior, as while I agree with most of his takes when compared to those who've been calling him out recently, his hostile behavior makes it really hard to openly support him without looking like I'm excusing his abhorrent actions. It's no wonder why a majority of people who still openly associate with Saintontas are primarily other Wuthering Waves content creators. However, as someone who sits firmly in the camp of preferring Zenless Zone Zero, I am stuck at a crossroads scenario where appealing to one side will anchor the other. Because I agree with a lot of the opinions of a man with such a volatile temper, I paint a picture of myself as someone who follows a man who's so hated outside of the Woowa community, and debatably even by people within the Woowa community as well. All the while, Saint himself will frequently make me look bad by generalizing an entire player base that I am a part of as a knee-jerk reaction to a few bad apples he lets live rent-free in his head for ad revenue and clicks. If ZZZ were to one day fail, I want it to fail because the silent majority decided it was no longer worth supporting. Not because a 70,000 subscriber YouTube channel in the West decided the best approach to protesting a Chinese gacha game was to keep playing it and to villainize an entire community as some irredeemable, toxic cesspit. To say it straight out, I've had enough. I am done. And I intend to change the direction of my channel going forward. To Saintontas and his community, I greatly appreciate what you have done to get my channel off the ground, and I will cherish the time I spent in live streams and the public Discord server. So please know that I did not come to this decision lightly and had spent quite some time thinking about it. As soon as I upload this video, I will be distancing myself from Saintontas and all forms of his social media. And while Saint himself cannot seemingly afford the luxury of not dragging my name through the mud, I, however, will not intend to do the same. So long as Saint himself doesn't do anything too drastic that requires me to address him publicly. I may occasionally watch a video or two from him, of course, but otherwise, I want to stay out of whatever war the guard dog of the internet decides to wage in the gacha space. It will be difficult for me to make a name for myself without the support of a larger voice in the space. However, I am ready to meet that challenge. Maybe one day we can meet on neutral grounds and I can have a conversation with him about life as two people, and not the fate of a few phone games as content creators. But until then, this has been Arikado Zodan, and I'm clocking out.